and ask them during the presentation, or you can wait till the end. We also do have a chat bar on the right-hand side that you can type in your questions, and then I will ask those questions if you are not able to use your microphone. During the presentation, I would ask that everybody mute themselves unless you're going to ask a question, just so we don't get that feedback, so the audio quality will be good. And today we have Chad Renley from the City of Evansville Public Works Department, and he is going to be speaking on some proposed parking changes to the downtown area. This was prompted by a safety study that was conducted looking at pedestrian and vehicular safety in the downtown area and some of their proposed changes. So the city right now is kind of in an information gathering stage and trying to determine what the best course of action is, I believe. So they're going to be presenting on some of the proposed changes that came out of that study, answering questions that you guys may have, and then they are also looking for input from the community for your thoughts on how to move forward as well. So with that, Chad, if you want to take it over and go ahead and start your presentation. Oh, Chad, where'd you go? I think you're muted again, Chad. There you go.
All right, there you go. All right, sorry, I lost internet or something there for a second. All right, so we good?
You're good.
All right, so let me present here. All right, you guys see it all right? Okay. So a little background on this. So, you know, the main area we're going to be talking about is Main Street and then the Main and Madison intersection. We're mostly going to be talking between Maple and First area. So we've been looking at this this area for quite a while. The city has received complaints or you know, feedback on this for quite some time, and we started looking into it, and we have started doing some minor safety improvements with the sidewalks, making them high vis at the intersection itself, and putting in some parking stalls along Madison Street to the south and north legs of that intersection. But to go any farther, we really needed some more data. And there was the potential of getting HISSUP funding from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, which is basically a safety improvement fundings, but it has to meet certain criteria to be able to receive that funding for those kinds of projects. So we hired a company called Taddy. They specialize in this kind of work. They come in, they look at the intersections, they collect all of the crash data from over the years, what kind of collisions were done, and they put it all together. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough, it didn't meet the qualifications for the HISSUP funding, but it did, you know, reaffirm some safety issues with the area and kind of reaffirm some of the plans that we had coming up with. So I'll go over some of the existing stuff that we have going on out there. So the existing parking is angled 45-degree on both sides. You know, the sight distances in the area for along Main Street between Maple and First aren't great, and we'll go over that a little bit more later on. And the main reason we're doing this is both vehicular, but mostly pedestrian safety. So I'm going to show you a couple different options between 30-degree parking versus parallel parking. We put a lot of forethought into this. We looked at a lot of satellite data, and we'll go over that a little bit more once we get into some of the images. This also will increase sight distances at Maple. I'm sure a lot of you, if anyone's traveled down Maple Street to turn make a turn onto Main there. If there's vehicles parked there, it's really hard to see around them. This would improve safer pedestrian crossings and much better visuals for pedestrians and vehicles, so people and drivers can see each other better. So this is the first one. This is parallel parking. You can kind of see over here the Main Street and Madison intersection, some of the safety improvements that we've already begun with the high visibility crosswalks, the parking lanes, and then some of the issues we've had out here are using these areas as turn lanes, and they're not. So to help define the intersection a little better, we've put cross-hatching into these areas to draw more attention and to help channel people into the proper lane as they're coming into the intersection. For parking, what we've done is removed the 45-degree parking from the northwest side and the southeast side of Main Street. And this is to help with the vision distances from people coming up northbound on Maple Street to make a turn. This will alleviate, as you can see, there's a car parked here, and this is how they are existingly parked. So when people come up to this intersection, they can actually see down and see oncoming cars coming. And then on the northwest side, we would go to a parallel parking here. We would lose a few parking spaces along here. So these are bump outs. So these would be flush with the existing sidewalk, and then they'd bump out. This raises pedestrians up so vehicles can see them. People can see over the vehicles to oncoming vehicles coming down the street before they make a crossing, especially kids. It gets them out on a safe distance to get them past the parked vehicles, so there's a better sight distance there. And then again here at Maple, having a single bump out at the crosswalk here. So overall, this would be a net loss of only 13 parking spaces with this here. I'll show you on the 45 or the 30-degree parking. You have an additional net loss of one more parking spot, so a net loss of 14. Same kind of thing. The positive to 45 or 30-degree parking is easier to back in and out of. With traffic coming down, most vehicles have backup cameras and they can see traffic coming as they back out a little more easily. If you want, I can get into the crash data a little bit later, and you can kind of show, I think it'll show some of the crashes that have happened have been vehicles backing up from the 45-degree angle just because they most likely couldn't see as they were backing up from other vehicles coming out. So that would help with this a little bit, but you're losing this in another parking spot. So my overall recommendation would be to go to this. It increases sight distance. It's a lot easier. You're losing overall less parking spots. It just creates a safer environment for both vehicles and pedestrians. I'll just keep in mind that, we have increased parking in other areas, the Maple Street parking lot, and we have more parking lot projects coming up. We'll be redefining those areas, and we'll be creating more parking spaces, as well as the parking lot we redid behind the bank there. So site distance inefficiencies, I'll take you through some pictures in the next couple screens that'll show, where people stand and what the site distances are, and if they meet or fail those requirements. Pedestrian safety, The bump outs, like I said, it raises pedestrians up to see over cars and lets oncoming vehicles see those pedestrians coming out to it instead of being hidden behind vehicles. Advanced yield lines, those would be added in to some of them. So when we have those bump outs, another thing that we can add in is additional signage. Signage now that could be put up would be so far back and hidden by vehicles they wouldn't really be seen. But with those bump outs, the signage could be put out right towards the end of where the parking lanes are, and would give a lot more visibility of those signs and notification that there's a mid-block crosswalk there. So these are the sight distances. As you can see, this top image here, this is from where a pedestrian would normally come out. And you can see if cars were parked here, it would fail. It would fail the vision requirements. But if you were out on that bump out here, you would see past those vehicles, and oncoming vehicles would be able to see them as well. Kind of same thing here. Back at the curb, you got vehicles blocking vision, especially if a child were to be crossing around this area. They couldn't see what was coming and vehicles couldn't see them. Putting that bump out with a crosswalk back here puts them out beyond the parked vehicles and gives much more visibility. So these are the bump outs with the advanced yield and the crosswalk, high visibility. Another addition to having the parallel parking versus 30-degree, it gives more vehicle width for travel lanes through here. I know there's a lot of problems now with if you get a van truck or anything going down these streets. Traffic typically has to slow down and move over so those vehicles can get through. There's just not enough room. This would give you closer to the average of 10-foot lane widths, so vehicles could travel more freely through these areas as well. So the crash data for Main Street from First to Allen Creek. The data was collected from 2015 to 2019. The crash rate is 1,103 per million vehicles. The average is 356 in Wisconsin. So it is definitely a higher crash rate. However, so the crash data is there. However, because it's such a slow area, none of the crashes were really severe. Most of them were mild. 4 crashes were related to drugs and alcohol. They were evenly split between day and night lighting conditions. 22 total crashes involving 41 vehicles. And then you have the wet and dry conditions. So there wasn't really anything environmental showing that there was anything environmental there that was creating the crashes. It was just roadway or the layouts and people. The ADT, or average daily traffic for the road, is 4,370. That was taken, I believe, last year. There were 0 pedestrian involved accidents. And you can see how many accidents there were per year. It's actually decreased over the last couple of years. We don't really know why, but it's been pretty even. That was just a randomly high year. Again, this is by season where the crash data was. Most of them were in fall and winter. So there were 2 crashes with no damage. Most of them are very minor or moderate. There was a couple severe damage, but the severity is typically done by how much money it costs to fix something. So if you have a higher end vehicle, or if there was just something that, depending on where it hit, it would have been counted as severe. So that's kind of where we're at. I'll go back to the overall pictures here. If anyone's got any questions on layouts or concerns, I'm definitely open to listening to any ideas you guys have, or if you guys like the idea, feel free to share that as well.
It looks like I have a comment here in the chat that there's a concern that that a substantial percentage of the population are not good at parallel parking, and because of this, and because cars must briefly travel backwards in order to parallel park, that they think that the parallel parking cars will significantly disrupt traffic. Has there been any indication, or did Taddy talk at all about parallel parking, how that affects traffic flow?
Not that specifically. Part of the reason we went with the northwest and southeast quadrants for parallel parking, statistically, we looked at satellite data, and it shows that these sides of the road are not heavily used as the northeast and southwest quadrants are. Those quadrants are used much more heavily. I'd say, the majority of traffic parks on those sides, and that parking would remain the same. So that's another reason we kind of picked these areas, was because traffic is not as heavy. Typically, there's only a few cars parked on these sides. So that specific data wasn't really looked into, no.
Have you, or has the city been able to talk to any other communities that may have gone to something similar to see what their experience has been, or do they have any suggestions of other communities that maybe we can talk to about what their experience has been just with traffic flow?
I would have to ask around and see what other communities would have a layout similar to this. I believe Janesville does in their downtown. I do meet with Janesville, Blight, and Rock County once every other month to discuss things. So that's something I could definitely bring up and ask if they've had any issues with this style of layout.
I have another question here. Can 30-degree parking be done on both sides of the street?
It could, but you'd lose even more parking stalls. So this was our scenario that would have the least amount of. We were trying to. So we took a couple different things into aspects. So, amount of parking spaces, we wanted to make it as safe as possible with as little impact as possible, and this is kind of what we came up with. So if you did 30-degree parking on both sides, it would help with the vision. It would help with traffic and stuff, but you would lose even more parking stalls. Probably closer to like 25 to 27 parking stalls.
Do you know what the total number of parking stalls is downtown now on Main Street?
I don't know if he's. Yes, we'd have to get a count to see how many, or they might have that data. They just didn't include the overall. I don't know if you can.
Christina, can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Okay. I just want everybody to understand that this has been my issue since I became mayor. Some of you that are on here, very few of you, maybe Joy, remember this is the way our parking used to be downtown for for a long time, just like this. And the problem that we're having, that Chad's addressed all of the issues except for the big one, which is the farm equipment that comes through Evansville, this is a farm agricultural laneway. So they have a lot of issues getting combines and tractors down through there if you've ever been along there. This worked well before. I don't know why we changed it and went to parallel parking on both sides, or angle parking on both sides. But this is the way it used to be, and it worked pretty well for vision. The bump outs are probably the most important safety factor, I think. But I just want everybody to understand this is not a new concept. This has been done. This is the way we used to have it. If Joy wants to make a comment on that, she can. But she's probably one of the only ones that is familiar with being here when that happened.
Yes, I'd agree, Bill. It's been done before. Worked well.
We have a comment in the chat that the loss of parking spots is very concerning to local business owners when it sometimes feels like there already isn't enough parking. They do agree that safety needs to be improved for both pedestrians and drivers, though. Is there ways that the city can work with the business owners on this reduction in parking spaces? I know we do hear that a lot.
We have actually increased parking spaces in the parking lots that we've redone. The one behind the bank, just up Madison Street, and then Maple Street parking lot as well. So those areas have increased parking spaces.
I also have a comment, will more signage be added for municipal lots so people know where they are and use them? Because a lot of cars that are parked downtown for more than the 2-hour limit as well. So I think it's kind of two parts. Where are these going to be a 2-hour limit like the downtown is supposed to be right now? And then is there going to be additional signage pointing them to those additional parking spaces and those lots?
Yeah, I know we are working on additional signage for the Maple Street parking lot. I believe some signs are being made up. But we can certainly look at adding some additional parking sign or parking lot signage for the parking lot behind the BMO as well.
You know about the 2-hour limit?
For signage for the 2-hour limit?
Well, I think that there's limited signage. I'm not sure people even realize there is supposed to be a 2-hour limit right now. Is the intention to keep that 2-hour limit and potentially put up more signage letting people know about that?
Yeah, it's something we can definitely look into. I know I don't think there's a whole lot out there. You'd almost have to put, I know some cities put parking time restrictions at each individual parking space. So each vehicle that parks there knows that they're only allowed to park. Because I know some cities have had issues with, well, that sign was 10 stalls down. So I didn't realize that applied to this parking stall. So some cities have gone to having one parking or a parking restriction sign at each individual stall. I guess that would be up to council and other committees to see if that was something they would want to look into. We could certainly increase the amount of signage out there. I think that's the only way you're really going to stick to that, is having something at each individual stall. We could try increasing the amount of signage that's out there just to see if that helps, for sure.
Christina, are you talking about the parking lots, or are you talking about the stalls downtown?
The stalls downtown.
Right. There's a 2-hour parking limit there. We used to chalk the tires. We quit enforcing that, basically. But when this becomes in effect, when we change this, we will be enforcing the 2-hour parking limit. The police will be chalking tires, and that will happen. I don't want to point any fingers. I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers, but as we all know, people who work downtown tend to park in front of their business. And if they don't do that, that helps with the parking arrangements downtown as far as availability. I get the convenience. I understand that. And I'm not trying to be negative towards them parking in front of their establishment, but that's a thing that needs to be addressed along with this. So it's going to be addressed one way or the other. So just so everybody understands that.
Could I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Okay, I have two questions. One, I don't understand the advantage of a 30-degree over a 45-degree angle backing out into the traffic. I don't know that 15 degrees makes it any easier to see what's coming down. Plus, this is sometimes for me complicated. Well, the car that I usually drive doesn't have a camera, so, oh well. It's really hard to see what's coming. I hate to park next to trucks because so many of the trucks that are parked downtown seems to me to be the stretch cab, crew cab, extra long thing. And if they stick out and make it just really hard to see around. So is there any thought of, say, restricting trucks along that way? And then I don't understand the advantage of 30 degrees or 45 degrees because you're still backing up and going out into the traffic backwards.
Yeah, so the advantage between 45 and 30, so it just shortens that angle, or it elongates that angle, right? So your vehicle, if you do have a camera on the back of your vehicle, as you're backing up, it's pointed more towards oncoming traffic. So you can see that traffic with your camera sooner than if you were in a 45-degree angle.
So the 30-degree angle is a real help if your car has a backup camera.
Yes.
Otherwise, not so much.
And it also, because you're elongating it, but you're also shortening its depth of the space. So you're actually gaining additional lane width as well. So that's another improvement to it.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have another comment here. The parking lot behind Kaylee is very underused. I think the increased signage and advertising that the parking lots are available and a walkway onto Main Street would be helpful. Overall, they like the plan and it's a good compromise to keep people safe and to save as many spaces as possible. And that's from a downtown business owner. I know that there are some other business owners here on the line as well. Would you mind chiming in and just giving your feedback, whether you're in favor of this idea, if you have any concerns that there may be, or any other questions that you might have for Chad while we have him here? If business employees are parking on the street for many hours, I think this is something that business owners can address with their employees rather than putting a sign at each stall. The comments that I've heard from businesses when we've talked about it, or that I've gotten, is the concern about the lack or the parking spaces. And I know that there are some businesses that under the new plan would have the parking spots in front of their car or in front of their storefront basically completely eliminated. So I think that there's a little bit of concern there. The other comment that I heard was that if it's parallel parking on one side and angled on the other, that most people are going to likely park in the angled parking still. So would that increase the amount of pedestrians going back and forth? But if we have the pedestrian bump outs, maybe that's what will just help facilitate that flow. And then the other comment that I heard was that for trucks going through, would that extra space would be good for the bigger trucks that have to go through, like the semi trucks and the farm agricultural equipment that has to go through. But there was also concern about just regular traffic. Would that make them go through faster if they have more of a sight line to be able to do that? So that was something, I don't know if either one of those was addressed by Patty.
So I don't think so. Typically, speed limits are typically set by. Now this is something from my DOT days. Speed limits are signed on or are developed on how fast a person feels they should go, and that's usually done by how open a space is and or how restrictive a space is. So when you have vehicles and stuff on either side and the bump outs and the additional advanced warning markings and everything, I don't think opening the lanes up is going to exceedingly increase the feel of openness where people feel like they should go faster. I think traffic flow would stay relatively the same. You have to open it up quite a bit. If there were no cars parked along there, it might give you more of a feeling. But if we keep up with the lane markings and painting, that helps restrict that area. And typically people will go slower through there. When you define areas like that, there's been a lot of studies done on paint markings and traffic, and if you go out to Asia, they put lane markings going down the road, and it actually makes you feel like you're going faster than you are. So people will naturally slow down. So lane markings and restricting or defining areas definitely helps with speed reduction. So I think with everything that we're doing, I don't think it's going to make people feel like they should go faster through the area.
Thank you. I have just some more comments about the 2-hour limits and additional signage for the parking lots. People seem to think that those would be good options for that reduction in space. Can the public parking lot locations and guidelines be handed out to business owners so that can be communicated to a client if asked about available parking? I think, unless you guys have something in place, I think that that's something as the chamber that we could help to communicate to the businesses as well, and working with the city and making sure that we have that information available. We have done that for specific events before. So when we have ladies' night out or something like that, where we know there's going to be a big influx of people into the downtown area, we have gone through and kind of shown lots that would be available for people to park in. So I think that that's definitely something that we could do. And I think when we're talking about events like that and people speeding through, I know that you're going to get that regardless. But even when we've had the street closed, you'll still have people going through sometimes and kind of speeding through there. So I think that there's always the chance of that. And I don't think that no matter what the street layout's like, you're not going to stop that completely. But I think that I've heard overwhelmingly positive for the bump outs. That marking on Madison Avenue where the people were using that as a turning lane, that's been really, they thought that was a really good idea. Is there any other comments or questions from the people on this call here? Do you guys have a timeline, or what is the best way? So as businesses or as people in the community are getting the information, and if they have feedback, what's the best way to get that to you?
By email. My email and my cell phone number are both on the website. If you go to, I'm trying to think here. Yeah, if you go to services by department under municipal utility, my name or my picture will pop up on the right-hand side with my email and phone number on there. So people can certainly reach out to me with any questions or concerns or anything they would have for it.
And what's the city's plan with moving forward through this?
So like I said, we've already started with the intersection itself. We're trying a new material. It's a thermoplastic. that we're putting down. It's supposed to last much longer because it's a high volume area. We're using the thermoplastic, so we don't have to interrupt traffic nearly as often. And that's being used on the stop bars as well as the crosswalk and cross hatching for the crosswalks. We're going to be painting the cross hatching for the parking lanes here pretty soon. And then we'll be removing the crosswalk signs that we purchased from that intersection and holding on to them. And then once we have the rest of this project done and the bump outs with the high vis crosswalks put in, we'll be using 2 of those signs in the middle of the street, how they're originally intended to be used for those mid-block crosswalks. So that's kind of the plan right now. The bump outs will have to be budgeted for. We can do the high visibility painting and the parking stalls pretty much at any time once we get approval for it. That's just the cost of paint. I would assume $1,200 or so would redo all the parking stalls with new paint. And the crosswalk high vis, the bump outs are probably going to cost, I would estimate, probably maybe $8,000 or so to do those. So those would probably get put into next year's budget if approved.
Okay, was there any other comments, any other feedback, any other questions for Chad? Bill, did you have anything else that you needed to state or comment?
I just want to tell anybody, I mean, you can get a hold of Chad. You can call any of the aldermen in your area. You can call me if you want, if you got feedback on this. I appreciate everybody's feedback. We want input from everyone, but I do appreciate you having this meeting today, so, and everybody's attendance.
Yeah, I thank you all for coming. Thank you to Chad and for Bill and our other older people that are on the call here. I appreciate you coming and speaking and allowing this opportunity for questions and feedback. For our businesses, if you want to communicate information through the chamber, you're welcome to do that as well. And I will put contact information for Chad and then a link to the website where you can find your alder person on there as well. Chad, do you mind sticking around for just a couple minutes as we're closing out and you had any specific questions they want to ask to the group?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to close out the meeting. I'm going to stop the recording. And thank you all for attending. I will be sending out the thing with the study. I think it's been included in the e-blast, but I did also include in the chat to the full study if you want to get more information. And I will link that onto it. We will send out a copy of this to our e-blast that goes out on Fridays, the presentation here. So if you needed to use it as a reference point. If you are not already receiving the Chamber's e-blast and you want to, you can go onto our website or Facebook page and just add your information, your contact information to our list so you can get notifications of things going on in the community, things that are in the business community. And I want to just thank you all again for coming and hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.